in more recent times.
Eternal Father, Father, bless our land. I pray you guide us with your mighty hand. Pray you keep us and protect us. Lead us into brighter days.
Remember this year one thing.
Sorry about that. There's some technical difficulties that I'm trying to go around. Sorry about that. I think earlier while we were in studio and we were talking, it wasn't being broadcast. However, it will be uploaded to the various social medias. So we have it. We have the recording. People will have access to it. But however, now we are live across the different platforms. Thanks for catching that, Dr. Chambers.
Yes. Sorry, I thought you had seen it, but it's okay. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Gordon. So as Mrs. McCoy shared a little bit about creating some form of reestablishing routine and normalcy, and you may be in shelters where you feel like you can trust someone to leave your kids with. It is not okay, really, to really leave your kids with just anyone, right? Having been a psychotherapist for so many years, I've heard so many stories, about how students or children in general, how it happened to them, how they were abused and all that. And so it is very important that, we go back to some talking to them, let them know that it's okay to tell them every and anything. So we have to address the emotional and psychological needs of children. And maybe you don't know what that means. The feeling. How are you feeling? Like Mrs. McCoy talked about what is going on now, and she mentioned about expressing yourself through the arts. Kids know that, if you have to really create a song, because we have to recognize that the trauma and how they experience it, this was bad for a lot of kids, and while the adults have resiliency, children really don't start developing resiliency until later ages, the research has shown. And so we have to now work on looking and talking to them about feeling. How do you feel about what happened? Ask them that very question, right? And so it is very important that you really, really say, how are you feeling? Let's talk about what was it like, and some children is going to have excitement. Not everybody's going to be sad, people are going to laugh about it. But it's, again, their way of really pushing things and avoiding the hurt, and they'll talk about it. But deep down, they were scared. They were traumatized. They're now displaced from where they used to live, and they have to live in shelter with everyone not sure, about what's going to happen next. And so make sure that you are checking up on them, making sure that you know what they're eating, what they're drinking. Mrs. McCoy talk about the church and the Ministry of Education that has established some teams to send out that is responding to some of these emergency, and just to provide counseling and just to listen to these individuals. Sometimes we just allow them to talk. I have seen videos where we have some older folks who are just talking, and they're worried about children because they themselves have PTSD of this, because it was in hurricanes like Gilbert when they were displaced. They were also traumatized, and they were abused physically, they were abused sexually, they were abused emotionally and psychologically, because their parents had to go to work and couldn't take them and had to leave them with somebody else, and these things happened to them, and now they're triggered by this and worried about children. So involve your children in the recovery process. Take them with you wherever you go. It's going to be hard, but it's better for you to say, go over there and sit down with your book, if they have a book, or if they have something, and stay there where I can see you. Don't think you can't take children everywhere. You can, especially they will feel more protected during this time. At least you have eyes on them and you can monitor them. So if somebody's giving you a little gig, show up with your kids. And if they say you can't take your kids, well, the gig is not for me then, right? But you have to really have these conversations to really build resilience. Dr. Gordon talked about, having their toys and space and drawing, and, for them to draw about their experience, they're going to have a lot of nightmares and, recurring dreams and still be in shock, wake up in cold sweat. Last week we talked about some of them probably be bedwetting and all those things because of that. Look out for these things. And I know Jamaican people like to beat children, but I'm going to beat the pit of them because them wet the bed. It is a trauma response. And I know not everybody is trained in these areas, but we have to tell them, the practitioners, the mental health practitioners, that these are normal responses to, having experienced trauma. So I say, little girl, you go with up one bit. No, our little boy, you have to really have the conversation with them about how their body is responding to these things, right? So involve them in the recovery, tell them what's going on. If something is happening, but I said pit enough, everything. In this case, you need to share with them what's happening. I'm getting some help because they may not have the phone, they don't have TV now, they can't go watch news. People are talking all kind of things around them. So you have to also protect that space that they're also sponging up everything, right? Protect them from the things they can see and hear as much as possible. So mothers get into the lioness mood, and fathers get into the lion mood, because you have to protect these children. Because like I say, it's through these times when disasters strike, way after, years after, when they're having some socio-emotional issues and psychological issues, it is as a result of these issues of past trauma. So I want to encourage you that as we are looking into talking with our children, let them know that, hey, we auntie England are going to help we, but things not come true yet. We're going to get some help from this individual, and this is the plan. Within probably 3 months, we're going to be able to have our little tattoo, as we call it, right? Because we may not be able to build a concrete structure in 6 months. Some of us don't have jobs. Remember, our people work in hotels that have been damaged down in the western side of the island, or in the even areas in Montego Bay that used to travel to work. They don't have that income anymore. So it's this dread of hopelessness that they're experiencing. And sometimes parents' emotions are high, and so parents, you have to really, I'm not saying suppressing, allow, cry and explain what is going on when these tears are coming. Share with them what is going on so you can normalize that experience for them. And if they have to cry too, feels like, me no want to see me cry, yeah. No, because you going to bottle that up experience that you've had, and then what's going to happen as a result of that, you're going to take out your frustration on your kids sometime. I have seen that happen over and over, and this is not only in Jamaica, across cultures, when parents don't know how to express and deal with some of the emotions, it ends up happening to children. So you have to protect those spaces and protect the children. It is no one's fault why this hurricane happened. It is hard to explain. And like I said, everyone who have experienced it is feeling the blunt of it. And I can empathize because I have been there before in a hurricane, and I know the emotionalities that happen and the long-term symptomatology. Like, I will never live anywhere in the path of a hurricane. I'm just gonna let y'all know. And this is just how I feel. That is because I still struggle from experience of Hurricane Ivan and Hurricane Beryl. So again, children, long term, this is going to affect them. So start talking to them about it and help them to build those levels of resilience, right? Updating them on what's going on, like I said, and tell them, right? School, when school is going to be reopened, it may not be for a while. You have to explain that to them. You may not be able to go for a while. We have to wait until somebody gives us something, right? So that we can get back to normalcy. But it's going to be a long-term psychological and emotional impact on them that is going to take a while, really for them to really be able to manage and find and develop coping skills. But we have talked a lot tonight, and I'm not going to talk much longer because all of us have touched on it, and I'm sure others would want to talk on their agenda. But if you want to add stuff to the panel about what we can do to support children in this time, the major things that I've seen across cultures is about protecting children, what they hear, what they see. And you never know who are pedophiles. You never know who's, looking and waiting for the opportunity to strike. So you have to really have your antennas up to protect those children and support them, because it takes us a minute of trusting someone to leave your kids within this time that really danger can strike, that change the trajectory of their lives forever. So I encourage you to think on these things, and I wish you all the best and hope. I'm sure Dr. Gordon will share our contacts. So if somebody wants to talk to us, and within a few weeks, I will be opening up my schedule so that I can accommodate a few people, a few phone calls. If you want to talk, and help. If you don't want to talk, your children want to talk to somebody about it. I'm going to be focusing on children because really the fact they have been really traumatized. You may not be showing it right now, but it's really happening to them. So I encourage you all to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chambers. You touched on the point of trauma and how children during this time, might be experiencing trauma. And so I'm going to have Dr. Adams go over trauma-informed care, which is very important at this time because it promotes some form of safety and empowerment and, healing by focusing on, children and using an approach that helps them not to be re-traumatized. So Dr. Adams?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Gordon, and thanks, Dr. Chambers. First, I want to just back it up a little bit. I think we talked about some of this last week, but just if we have new people who are tuning in, or maybe you just don't know, we've been throwing around that word trauma a lot. So I wanted to start with, what do we mean when we say trauma? Because sometimes we think trauma is just the event, it's the hurricane. And that is a traumatic event, but it's not just the hurricane in and of itself. It's the emotional piece and the physical wound that we carry with us. It's an event that overwhelms your ability to cope with what's going on. So we all have our own barometer, if you will, our own scale of how much we can deal with. Once your ability, or whatever it is, whatever event it is, overwhelms your ability to cope with something, that's when we start talking about stress. And then even beyond that, that's when we start talking about trauma. And usually once trauma happens, that's when your whole sense of safety, your stability, your loss of control, all of that gets, shaken up. And I'm not going to get too much in the neural pieces, but I do want to say something to help us understand, like when traumatic things happen to us, like your brain is pretty much stuck in this either fight or flight or freeze. And not much else is going on in your brain in terms of like how you're thinking about things, how you would normally think or logically understand or reason. Your brain is kind of stuck. So give yourself grace, give you the people that you're communicating and interacting with grace, because we're all just in survival mode. I mean, even sometimes I think Mrs. McCoy had said this, like, don't ask me if you're good or something like that, because even a question as simple as that, your brain is going to have a hard time processing that, because you're asking it to think and reason and look for an emotion. And I'm just here just trying to get through the day. In some cases, your brain physically, literally cannot even form the words to describe how you're feeling. So lots of that trauma, we know some of this, like we were in fear, you've watched your home get damaged, your family's been separated, even the loud winds, the flooding. I know I've spoken to some people, once they hear something drop, maybe it's a bottle drop on the ground, they cringe up like that. Like those are just automatic responses to trauma. You've lost a lot of the belongings, your routines. Every morning I used to wake up at 5:30, pray, then I go brush my teeth, then I go make breakfast for the kids and all of that. Their sense of normalcy, your routine, all of that has been kind of thrown out the window. And again, being jumpy. I think Dr. Chambers talked about this with the kids, like maybe bedwetting, nightmares. You might be anxious, you're angry, you don't know why you're angry. Because why you walk around your face looks so you're just mad, but that's your body trying to protect itself because it does not know what is going to happen in the next moment. So it's an automatic response to what's going on in the world. Again, for children, sometimes some of the things you might also see with them, like they might act younger than their age, like you're 10, why are you acting like this for? Come on, mom, I don't have time for this. No, it's not the time for that. Some of that, those are things that we might even think of as kids being defiant or not listening or them crying for everything or the extra clingy. All of that is all normal responses to trauma. That I don't want to sleep by myself. I don't want to close my eyes. Or the opposite, where they're just extra quiet. They're not saying anything. All of that's normal responses to trauma. You might even start looking at your neighbor sideways. Like you might not trust what they're saying or doing. There might be more conflict. Again, all of that is trauma. So give each other grace. So now when we're talking about trauma-informed care, we know what trauma is. That's, overwhelming capacity to cope. We know some of those signs of trauma, but then how do we use trauma-informed care? How do we rebuild that? And like our title of tonight, restoring hope. The first thing for that foundation of hope is safety. You have to rebuild that safety because you have to tell your brain, which tells your body, that you're safe. If your brain don't feel safe, that means your body doesn't feel safe, which means those responses are going to continue to happen. So some of the things that you can do to help rebuild that safety. First, it sounds really simple, but a lot of breath work. I know we did some of this last week. A lot of breathing. Breathe in for 4. Hold it for 4. Out for 4. Just simple breathing. Imagine you have a feather. You're blowing into a straw. Pretend you're blowing bubbles. Any type of just breath work to tell your brain, I am safe. Some of the physical things you can do, maybe like creating predictable routines, which I know is still kind of hard right now, but I think we said this last week, even if it's one thing or 2 things that your body knows, I'm going to do this at the same time every day. Dr. Chambers touched on this, some of the words that we're using around children, and limiting the news. Even though we need to be factual with our updates, we still need to limit the amount of information that we're giving our kids so that our nervous system, our brain can settle down because it's still recovering and will be recovering from the trauma that it just experienced. So lots of breath work. A lot of times this is a good place to also activate the rest of your senses. So a thing that we do a lot is called grounding. A grounding technique is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can taste, and which one? I'm missing a sense. Eyes, nose, guys, which one am I missing? Touch, sense, or smell, your sight, taste. Which one am I missing? I don't even know. But anyways, I'm missing whichever the last sense is, put it in there. So for touch, you can just find textured things, a stone that's smooth. What's the name of that brush you used to that you use with the cake? So when you're brushing, I can't remember the name of the brush, but like a textured brush like that's hard that you can rub against your hand. Any type of textured item. If you're smelling something, lavender soap. Lavender is already calming for the body, but smelling that, or peppermint, anything that's strong like that. Tea is good because it has the smell and the taste. And then for kids, even thinking about like very big movements, I think Mrs. McCoy mentioned this already as well. The more traumatized you are, the bigger the movements actually are very helpful. So dance, music, any type of patterned expression, creative art, drawing, coloring, anything like that, all of those things help. They seem like simple everyday things, and they are. And that's why it's really accessible. Other things that you can do when we start talking about rebuilding safety. So again, trauma-informed care is once you understand what trauma is, now we're leading with that information to say, how do we care for ourselves and others? And some of those activities with activating the senses is the first and one of the most important steps in laying that foundation to rebuild, to tell your brain that you're safe and to rebuild hope. The next piece, we're talking about now understanding reactions and just your overall emotional awareness. Again, normalizing some of those behaviors that we talked about earlier, the fear, anger, sadness, anxiety, all of that. Helping children express their feelings, because Mrs. McCoy and Dr. Chambers both touched on that. Children may not have the words to say to you. They might just start crying, throwing tantrums, bedwetting, nightmare, clinginess. All of those things, again, are normal. But how can we help them express themselves? I say, well, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist or whatever. You don't have to be. Helping them just by playing with them, helping them draw, anything like that, coloring, all those things still help them do all of that. A few other things I wanted to touch on were about connection. This has been a big message, I think, of both the government and just as we see through community. Trauma is very isolating. You might feel like you want to withdraw. You might start feeling, like you're alone. Nobody understands. You don't want to talk. But while trauma is isolating, the healing part is reconnecting. Think about any muscle. I used to be an athlete, so this is what comes to me. Think about any muscle that you've torn or injured, right? That muscle is traumatized. In order for that muscle to heal, it has to reconnect itself and form back to be strong, and then you have to exercise it, right? It's the same thing. Trauma is very isolating, but community, as much as you might feel like you want to isolate yourself, now is the time to connect. Check on somebody, share a meal with them, a kind word with them, asking them, not if you're good, like Mrs. McCoy said, but what's really going on. Talk to me about, what you're feeling, or just sit with them and be with them, right? Listening, a lot of things that we take for granted, listening more than we, just talking, and just creating that space where people feel like they can just be themselves. Some of the last two things that I really want to to touch on are just how to help yourself regain that control. Because if you remember, we said like trauma, it kind of shakes that sense of safety and makes you feel like you don't have any control anymore. To help yourself do that, even with little kids, where like, sometimes, at least when I was growing up, it was like stay in a child's place, big people are talk, those types of things. But really helping children even make small decisions, like, making them feel like they have ownership in what's going on, bringing kids to any type of drives or any other relief events that are going on, so they feel like they're helping to rebuild their community. I know for me, that has been such a huge part of my healing journey here. Even though I'm here in the States, that is when I started to feel like, okay, I'm redirecting this grief that I'm feeling into something productive that's going to help my country. And I saw lots of kids that were there partnering alongside me and serving. And that was really just a joy to see. I'm continuing to give updates, again, limiting those updates, but still being factual about what is going on. And to some of Dr. Chambers' points earlier, I wanted to add around reassuring kids, like, yes, a hurricane happened. It was devastating, but the adults are out here now. They're working to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that is that's happening in your community, so that they understand what's going on. Because you might think, why am I explaining myself to a child? But it helps their brain to make sense of what has happened. And that's how they begin to process things. And some of, just tapping into our culture, honestly, if you have access to any type of music, that hits or miss depending on where you are, your gospel, your reggae, just calming music. Don't forget your scripture. Affirmations are another thing, both for adults and kids, like, I'm strong, I'm resilient, this too shall pass. Whatever it is that you said to yourself, if you're in a moment where you're like, I can't do this, like, where do I start? They said they're coming with this, all now the light don't restore it, the water, whatever it is that's happening, I'm looking at rubble, but I need to rebuild. Take that moment to breathe, do that breath work, and affirm yourself and affirm your kids, like, this too shall pass. I am strong, my spirit is resilient. The hurricane may have damaged, physical things, but I am still here. I am intact, whatever it is that you need. So that's really all that I wanted to share about trauma-informed care. Again, the biggest thing is now that we understand what trauma is and what some of those behaviors are, or symptoms are rather, that we might see. The first thing, if you don't remember anything, as I said, is starting with safety. In order for your body to feel safe, your brain has to tell it that. And for your brain to feel safe, you have to do some of those activating exercises around the breathing, the sensory, the touching, even some of the guided work that Dr. Gordon led us through in the beginning. All of that, sometimes it might seem like, what you have me to do? Those things are really important for your brain to feel safe again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adams. So we just went over the trauma-informed care, which it is pretty much to help individuals, children, families, and communities to recover after a hurricane by recognizing the emotional, physical, and psychological effects of the disaster. And then it prioritizes the safety, calm, and connection and empowerment. So thank you, Dr. Adams, for sharing all those pointers and tips. My main takeaway that you mentioned is that we should make sure that children have that predictability after the chaos. We want to ensure that, that is there. Also, something I want to add is to continue to reinforce our children. You're safe. The adults are taking care of things. You want children to have that level of safety, feeling safe at always. So reassure them you are safe. Adults are taking care of everything. Because right now they see a whole lot going on. It's chaos, But that one reassuring statement can take them a very far way. Thank you. Now that we've heard about trauma-informed care, we are now going to go ahead and we're going to talk about building that family hurricane plan. And in doing that, we're going to hear, some in personalizing the plan for each family. What are items that are necessary in your kit? What is a small coping plan for children? So kind of just zooming in on individual families, especially in the St. Elizabeth setting where the damage has been so severe. What would a family hurricane plan look for those people who have been so severely impacted? And so Mr. Martin is going to walk us through.
Good evening, everyone. I do believe that you all touched on that plan, right? I know when you were talking, Dr. Gordon, you talk about having like birth certificate or important documents put away in waterproof type containers as much as you can. And I know that Mrs. McCoy also brought up something like that, right? Because building back is going to be important, and having your identification document is very important and will save money because you don't have to money and time because you don't have to invest in getting those things again. And you all talked about plans in terms of knowing where we're going to meet. God forbid we get separated at any point in time throughout these disasters that takes place in Jamaica. I think also having an understanding of evacuation routes is important, just in case something that comes up where people are going to have to evacuate, and where am I going to evacuate to is going to be important. That's going to be a part of the family plan too, right? Everybody's going to be aware of that. I think some of the other things that you guys talk about in planning, which I'm gonna date myself a little bit. Like, I was there for Gilbert, right? I remember the night when Gilbert happened, and my brother was getting ready for school. But I think what really helped myself, I was, again, going to date myself now. I was 6 years old back then. I remember one of the things that helped me and my siblings get through that is that, what, we had rivers that we all could go to and we have fun, and we enjoy ourselves as all the community members, community, like all the kids in around the area. And adults were there with us also, and other kids that were older. So this is where community is very important. And for all the people who are listening to this or streaming to this event, it is even more important now that we have those little activities where the community come together and play baseball or dandy shandy or cricket or those scrimmage that we used to play. And sometimes you used to play that on the street. And I think even now is the time that you might be able to utilize those spaces again, because the roads are in disrepair. But I remember those were activities that helped me understand what was going on, and helped me not feel as if that hey, what, the world is coming to an end, or the world is at an end. So yeah, community, getting back to the community, getting back to some of those activities that we used to do pre-internet everybody have a cell phone in their hand, or everybody have a handheld video games or something like that. These are going to be these are important tools, or effective tools that will help the entire community can like come together and cope. In my opinion. So again, evacuation route, have all your important documents stored away. And I know you guys talked about some people where there was a complete flooding or a complete destruction of their belongings. If this is it is something that is suspected, maybe what you can do is find areas or family members who live in areas that is not a flood zone. I know, like with my family, it wasn't a flood zone, so they no water was able to get to them. So if you have families in the area that's not a flood zone, maybe this is where you can send all those important documents to, like, with people you trust. Say, hey, you know what? Hold on to my passport. I know you talked about the guy who lost his passport. Hey, hold on to my passport over here from here. Hold on to my birth certificate, and put them in that waterproof type container, so that you'll be able to keep those safe. And other plans that Mrs. McCoy talk about is like knowing your area and who I can reach out to for support, like the ODPM, Support Jamaica. I know in the St. Elizabeth area they talked about too, like the health centers that still operating and offering support as much as they can to individuals. Yeah, those are some of the things I would think are important in talking in having a plan for yourself and your family, and your community when you can. And I think, you know what, trying to give back as much as possible. I know they talk about trauma, and helping yourself feel safe, but sometimes giving back is also very fulfilling and healing. You talk about restoring hope, Jamaica's the healing circle. All these things are helpful. So when you can give back. When you can get involved in something within the community, get involved. And you know, for me, growing up in Jamaica, I remember one of the things that my aunt, I was raised by my aunt. One of the things that she always said to me, like, once there's life, there's hope, right? And I heard, I know Dr. Adams talking about reassuring yourself that you're here, you're safe, no, that type of thing. And it's the same mindset that there's life, there is hope. And once there's hope, the possibility of rebuilding is assured. So continue telling yourself that, you know what, this too shall pass. Pray as much as you can, you know what. And you know, sometimes we're led to believe that this is all a part of God's plan, so on and so forth. I'm not always of that mindset. This is a part of God's plan. I mean, it's just unfortunate that this happens. But also sometimes we're taught that, you know, God would not give us more than what we can handle, right? And sometimes this is an opportunity for us to come together and grow and be stronger after this. So just those are some of the tips that I would provide in terms of planning.
Thank you so much. Very important tips that you've shared. And so I want to throw a question out there to everyone. And Mrs. McCoy is going to come back to talk to us a little bit about some information she shared earlier. So everyone, if you're now watching, I apologize. We've been talking since the time on the flyer, but for whatever reason, I did not click on go live. And so you missed the entire first part of everything that we share. That is my fault, and I apologize. I am mad at myself for not going live because the information was so rich. And so I'm going to ask Mrs. McCoy to go back over some of what she shared earlier. I also want to add that Mrs. McCoy over the weekend traveled to the side of Jamaica that has been significantly damaged and impacted. And she's been engaged in the field work of providing care kits and food and, all sorts of support to those in need. So I'm going to I'm going to give her the space to kind of go over what she saw, what she engaged in when she did that visit, and also go over, the family kit that we talked about earlier.
Okay, good night again, everyone. So, so I'll try my very best not to repeat most of what was already said, but I traveled to a section of Trelawney over the weekend, and I was saying to someone that it is heartbreaking, and normally they said, you know what, you're not supposed to sympathize, you must empathize. But then I was there and I said, how can I not sympathize? Because, of the pain, you could actually touch it, you felt it. It was so evident, But one of the things that struck me most are two things. One, the first person I saw was a mother with her 4 children, and they were on the road. And of course, I could not leave my vehicle because from I see them, I started crying. Very emotional person, and I don't know how to deal with persons who are hurting. It's like I find myself being engulfed in that space. But then my only question was, because there was a lady who was escorting us and was bringing us to the different places, and my question was, where are they going to sleep tonight? Because where they were standing, their home was in a gully. And I was struck. But then, if I don't know if I should say the beautiful thing about Jamaicans and maybe other places, I don't know. But we always rise to the occasion when the need arises. And so I found out that the community was very much involved in the recovery process in terms of all those families that were displaced. If my roof did not blow off, then I take in a family of 4, a family of 5. They were just displaying what we call unity in adversity, and providing for these persons that they could reach, to assist in whatever way they can. So you saw the community coming together to ensure that no one was left on the outside. And I was appalled. The love, the care, the support was overwhelmingly great. But as we continue to look, though, at the family survival kit, that is basically, and I say it's a plan for self-sufficiency and to make sure that we stay alive, we survive during this horrendous situation, this heartbreaking situation that actually came with Hurricane Melissa. Now, we spoke about the water supply. Many persons' water supplies have been cut off, and so we are depending maybe on the rainfall, the water, as well as the persons who are donating, right? Donating water to us. So we have to make sure that whatever it is that we're drinking is clean water. And I said earlier that clear water doesn't mean clean water. So we must be drinking purified water, filtered water, preferably the ones that comes in the bottle. And if we are storing water, we need to make sure that we pour at least 8 drops per gallon of bleach, unscented bleach, in the water that we are using, as well as use necessary things to prevent mosquito breeding space and breeding site, because we don't want to be spreading or contributing to the spread of any disease or infection caused by mosquitoes. So we need to make sure that our waters are covered, properly covered, and for that we're drinking is properly treated, right? We also want to make sure that our food supplies, we choose foods that requires little or no cooking. Like canned foods, beans, tunas, vegetable soups, fruits, ready to eat sardines, sausages, corned beef, and we try to use everything that is in that can. For example, if we're using a can, if it is a case where we're using maybe the milk powder or the Lasco in the pack, make sure that wherever we're storing it, that it is properly stored and is protected from rodents or rats, because we don't want an outbreak of leptospirosis. And I've heard of cases of leptospirosis already. So we need to make sure that we're protecting ourselves as best as we possibly can in terms of the food that we're consuming. We also need to make sure that we stock up for the babies, if there are babies in the house, or if we have any children, make sure that the supplies that we receive in, we are not looking out only for the adults, but we're looking as well for the children, what the needs of the children are, and we are supplying food for those children as well. We need to make sure as well that we have our first aid kit or medical kit. And of course, that may include some over-the-counter drugs as well as prescribed medications that we are presently using. We also need maybe pain relievers. We can get some Panadols over the counter or ibuprofen. And we have been receiving the assistance of the JDF, the JCF nurses, medical practitioners who are on site for many other days, that they are there to provide medical assistance, because we know the hospitals, some of them have received real damage, severe damage. So we have to make sure as well that we stock up on the things that we know that we will need for medical purposes. We need antiseptic wipes. We need antibiotic. Maybe if we have, those antibiotic ointment, that can also go into our kit. Gauze, tape, insect repellent is also important. Insect repellent, because there we have seen an increase in the amount of mosquitoes, and even though we have seen fogging being done through the Ministry of Health, yes, it's still a lot. So if you can help yourself or guard yourself by using insect repellents, that will also assist. So we need that in our kit as well. And we also need batteries for our flashlights, batteries for our little battery radio, so we can keep in touch with what is happening and we can listen to the news, right? Stay in touch with the outer world. We also need to make sure too that we have our little mask, because it can get dusty, as well as all sorts of something is going on, viruses in the air, just to make sure that we are protecting ourselves. So we might get a cough, covering, making sure that we don't spread what it is that we have. So we need that as well. We need blankets. And I've seen where persons have been taken in blankets, because, persons too have been displaced. They're in shelters, they're in different homes. And so taking your blanket with you, or even sleeping bags. I've seen where sleeping bags as well are being given. That is also a given in terms of the personal items that you will also need. As it relates to hygiene and sanitation, that we need, for the ladies, you are going to need your sanitary napkins for that time of the month. We will also need diapers for the baby. We need disposable liners. We need, what else we need? Yes. And we also need baby wipes, trash bags, because we need to make sure that we are storing our garbage properly, right? So we need trash bags. You will need a toothpaste, a toothbrush, your soap, and preferably an antiseptic one, that will assist with, in terms of bacteria, getting rid of bacteria. You need hand sanitizer, and of course you need chlorine, bleach for disinfecting the place, wiping the place, Lysol as well, if Lysols are given for the space that you are in, especially if you're in a shelter where many persons are using the different facilities that are there. As it relates now to our safety, security, and self-protection, these are of utmost importance. And we heard earlier, Dr. Chambers spoke about it, and Dr. Adams as well, as it relates to the safety and security and self-protection, not only for yourself, but also for your children. And we speak about talking to them about, bad touch, good touch, letting them know that it is okay to speak to you about what is happening. Yes. Also, you need to make sure that you have a list of contacts and Jamaica emergency contacts and information in case there is an emergency. And I'm grateful that persons are being provided, or communities are being provided with Starlink, so that they can basically access the internet. Some persons, hopefully, and we are hoping as well that persons have access to generator, where they are able to charge their devices, their phones, right, to make contact. But if there is a need, like for safety, security, emergency, then you can contact the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, which is ODPEM in Jamaica. And we have seen them working since before Hurricane Melissa and even after Melissa. We have also local parish council who have been providing shelters and relief points. We have persons internationally, locally, who have been contributing as well. Also, we speak about in order for survival, we need to create a safe space for talking. And people heal when they can talk openly without judgment, right? So check in with them. How you coping? What's going on with you today? Give your full attention by listening more than you actually speak. Sometimes some persons just want us to listen, yeah? And you don't need to push people to talk. Allow them to speak freely. Just be available. Available by giving them your time, available by giving them their space while you invade their space, just to listen to them, just to watch them cry. Survival is a must. Allow your children to express themselves. And I said earlier, and we have said it earlier, this is just for reinforcement. Through the arts, allow them to draw, allow them to play, go outside, play some games with them, sit at the riverside and make up stories. Yes, do fun things that will help to keep their minds off what they have experienced and what they are presently experiencing as well. We also have Jamaica Crisis and Support Resources that are available to anyone who is in immediate danger. You can contact these emergency services. So we have the Jamaica Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Hotline. And if you're listening to somebody, or even personally, and you realize that no, this person is not the way that they used to be, or they're looking a bit depressed or down, and you think they might need some additional assistance, something that is more detailed and more in depth than you, something professional, yes, you can help that person and help yourself as well by calling 1-888 New Life. That's 1-888 New Life. And that's 1-888-639-5433. Or you can also reach out to the Child Protection and Family Services, which is the CPFSA. That's what we call it in Jamaica. Yeah, the CPFSA doors are always open, and you can reach out to them, and you just need to dial 211. Simple as that, 211. And of course, you can express and tell them what is going on. Also, we are grateful for the different organizations, different agencies who have been very, very involved and active, the local churches and community groups who have been providing counseling and support. And I said earlier that the Ministry of Education and Youth, they are dispatching counselors, guidance counselors to assist in other areas that have been affected. And we are truly grateful. We also have the Support Jamaica website that you can actually go and submit a request for immediate assistance. So if you need immediate assistance, you can go to supportjamaica.gov.jm. So that's supportjamaica.gov.jm to submit a request for immediate assistance. So we have so many organizations, so many entities, so many services that are out there for you to access. And finally, we also have the National Parenting Support Commission. That's the NPSC, the National Parenting Support Commission in Jamaica. And they have also relaunched their 4 parenting support helplines. So they presently have 4 parenting support helplines that are there available to you if you need immediate psychosocial first aid. And the numbers, parents, you can contact these persons by dialing 876-788-5606. That's one of the helplines. Or if you're not getting through there, you can dial 876-854-9010 or 658-213-2625. And the final helpline, 658-213-2631. So all those support helplines are available to you through the National Parenting Support Commission if it is that you need immediate psychosocial or psycho-emotional support. I encourage us to create small groups, check-ins in the community center, in the schoolyard, or in the church hall, or even in the middle of the street, right? Share food, share tasks. Yes, let us come together, cook together, have fun, check in on the elderly, check in on the vulnerable neighbor, have community power, praise and worship, dance, play cultural music, have cultural music session. You know those cultural songs that we normally sing when it's Jamaica Day? Yes. Come together, man, beat pan and sing them and dance. Yes, because this may help to reduce panic as well as isolation that may lead to mental illnesses. So let us come together. We have to survive. There is hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCoy. Wow, that is rich information right there. Lots of resources shared that people can access. So please, I hope that if you weren't able to capture all of that, you can go back and you can watch the video to make note of some of those. But I do have some more resources too that you can add to your toolkit. Some of them I have included. Ms. McCoy shared a lot just now, but there's a Red Cross that was mentioned earlier. There is the Christian Brethren Assembly in Jamaica. The number is there also. Sorry about that. I didn't know it was going to show that way. There's also the ADRA Jamaica. It's a Seventh-day Adventist group. They're providing support as well. There's also, like Mrs. McCoy shared, the local clinics and child guidance offices. They're also providing support. There's also the American Friends of Jamaica Disaster Relief Fund. If you reach out to them, they have fund that they also are supporting people. There is also the Global Empowerment Mission. They're also providing support. The All Hands and Hearts, they're also providing some form of support for those persons who are affected by Hurricane Melissa as well. And then there are some other resources here. I'm probably going to have to share a QR code for you to see some of these, but I'm going to read off some of what is there on my end. It's pretty much a lot of them are the places I shared earlier, but it has more specific information. This slide has more specific information in terms of what they provide. What I'm going to do for this one is to share a QR code where you can scan it and have direct access to this information. So these are resources provided and support that's there for everyone that's in need. We have covered a lot tonight. Again, I am so sorry that some of the information we missed out on. However, we did do our best to have everybody kind of recap a bit to, make sure we cover all bases. So that is all that we are going to have for tonight. So
Dr. Gordon,
yes,
before
yes,
you close,
Dr.
because
Adams.
if my mother is watching this and I don't say reach out to the Kiwanis Club of any city, I'm not too old to get beaten. So but I'm kidding. But Kiwanis clubs in any in any parish, in any city, any town, they focus mainly on kids, especially as schools are reopening. So reach out to your local Kiwanis club.
So the local Kiwanis Club. Okay, that's
Yep,
one to add.
thanks.
I'm going to add that one to the list as well. The local Kiwanis Club. That's somewhere too that support is given. I see some Sandra McPherson is saying that's right. All right, thanks, Miss McPherson. Yes, so that's right. So support through them. Good. She said reach out to the Kiwanis. So now we know. We have provided a list of resources tonight that people can, get some support from. So as we close tonight, I want to honor each of us, each of you, who hang on with us, who stayed in this space, with the courage to have us being open and sharing with you, and the willingness for us all to grow. Now, as we are about to go, I want us to remember that we pretty much talked about the survival, the protection, and the ways that we can strengthen our families. We can build a Jamaica survival kit, not just with supplies, but with love, intention, and readiness. We explored how to care for children, how to speak peace into their affairs, and how to spread, how to steady their hearts, even as we steady our own. And we also grounded everything in a trauma-informed care. Reminder that safety, trust, and compassion must guide every step of our healing. And what we are doing in this circle is more than conversation. It is pretty much rebuilding. It is restoring. It is choosing hope in the face of devastation. And let us remember this: storms may break our buildings, but it cannot break us as people, not Jamaican people, because we rise, we rebuild, we return to each other again and again. And as we go into the rest of this week, carry the lesson from tonight with you. You are preparing, not panicking. You are healing, not hiding. You are parenting with courage, even in uncertainty. You are part of a community that cares deeply. And when the heaviness comes, and it will come, pause, breathe, and remember that you are not alone. We rise stronger when we rise together. And so thank you for sharing this space tonight. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for choosing hope. Have a wonderful night as we continue this journey. Next week, you'll see us again, and we hope that we will be on time with everything. So Jamaica strong, Jamaica healing, Jamaica rising. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Oh God, me island cry, but we still rise, still rise. Jamaica strong. Melissa came, no friend found. She tear down the place, mash up we wall. But still we there, still we stand tall. Cause love never dead, it conquer all. Mama pray, the picnic them all tight. Darkness come, but we find the light. From the countryside to Kingston, we sing it loud. Jamaica strong, we rise again. From the flood, from the pain. One love, one blood, one name, we rebuild again, we no shame. Jamaica strong, my people brave. Every tear become a wave. We pray, we heal, we move.
Eternal Father, Father, bless our land. I pray you guide us with your mighty hand. Pray you keep us and protect us. Lead us into brighter days.
Remember this here one thing. After rain, sun of fish shine. We build for pressure, born for climb. We bend but we not broke every single time. The storm come rough, me not deny. Roof fly away, dream fly high. Whole heap of people lose them base, but faith still strong in our face. Jamaica tough, heart heavy, yes. But we spirit not dead, it just take rest. From nothing we build back step by step. We hands still strong, we soul still blessed. So when you look on the rubble, remember, we not done, we just rebuild double. Jamaica can't done, never that. We rise up.
Eternal Father, Father, bless our land. I pray you guide us with your mighty hand. Pray you keep us and protect us. Lead us into brighter days.